I didn't think the reflective part of this course would be beneficial. I just thought I'll be dealing with clients, and I was excited about that aspect of it. I didn't really think about the reflective part.
I think me, along with other students, we thought it was going to be easy just talking about our emotions, and we didn't really think into really critical writing or reflecting.
Based on my experience in other courses during my degree, I thought that the way uni taught the reflective process was a waste of time.
I was a little bit concerned about receiving feedback on your own reflections and perhaps reflecting critically. I didn't really know what critical reflection meant.
The whole process just generated questions to myself about just about the importance of reflecting and the importance of recognizing bias, my own personal bias, and contrasting theory with practice.
You get to be more emotionally intelligent, and before the course I didn't know that term and I didn't know what it meant, but I got to see how you need to realize your emotions, and then that leads to you being more self-aware.
I learnt reflection was much deeper than just looking at what went well and what didn't go well. There's quite a structure to it, particularly critical reflection. It's much more beyond just description. You've got to get deep in terms of evaluating and planning for the future, especially. And that's important because we need to learn, and we need to learn for our future careers. And we also need to learn a skill that's going to be beneficial in our future as well.
I think it is important to reflect when you have a negative experience or feel like you could have done something a bit better, because it allows you to consider how to improve in the future and helps you to learn from your mistakes. If you don't reflect on your mistakes, I think you're likely to make them again.
The most challenging aspect of it was actually putting it down. I knew what I wanted to say. I found it hard to articulate that on paper.
I found the process, it just takes a lot of time. I just found that a little bit draining, although it was beneficial. It just takes time, but it's certainly worth it. And I guess the biggest challenge I faced was recognizing shortcomings that I hadn't noticed before. And so that self-awareness certainly was quite confronting. You have to really assess how you went in situations, and through that you learn skills that perhaps you don't actually have, or knowledge that you don't have. And so the biggest challenge is just being confronted by your shortcomings or your blind spots that you didn't know existed.
One of my main challenges was sharing my reflective thoughts with my peers on the online blog posts, because I felt a bit embarrassed. But look at me now, recording my thoughts for people to watch during class. I liked the pressure of having to write my thoughts on the online blog posts, because I had to make sure that they were honest and insightful, because my peers would know if I was lying.
When I received feedback, I think me, along with other students, we feel it's kind of like a personal attack or something upon ourselves with feedback, and really that's the emotion you feel. You feel attacked, or you feel like you're unintelligent. But when you look at that emotion and then you apply it and see why you're feeling that way, you really learn that it's okay to feel that way, but then to move past it.
I definitely think that you need to be able to critically reflect to practice law. I think I definitely didn't understand the importance when I first enrolled in the course. I feel like I have gained so much just from this one course. You need to be aware of your emotions and your feelings and your values and your beliefs to be able to, I think, perform at your best level in whatever you do. And you might think you know them, but then to actually articulate it and to translate it into words and to really understand how you actually feel is really important.
So the process of reflection, I will absolutely use it in the future. I'm even finding myself use it now. You are able to look at what you've achieved in a day and think about the highlights and perhaps the lowlights, and you become a better person from it. So I absolutely will be using it in the future. Forever, it's a forever skill.
I think the biggest tip I can give is not to be afraid to go into too much detail. You might think you're sharing too much, but the way to really critically reflect is to think about your perspective on it, think about what other people's perspective on it. But I think it is very important to reflect back to your upbringing, and just think really deeply about how you honestly feel about certain things. Don't just give a superficial answer. Think about it, think deeply, because it can actually help you. Definitely helped me. I can talk about it more freely now, just in general with everyone.
I think at the beginning of the course, I didn't really appreciate how relevant the articles would be. I think they're on there, but we just ignore them and we don't think they're relevant until you get feedback that says you need to apply the literature. And when you read it, for me, I read an article about your feelings through law school, and I think that that's an article I wish I read at the start, because it really made sense of why I was feeling so, I think, competitive and pressured.
I think it is important to be very honest with yourself when you're reflecting on something, whether in this course or professionally.
Every day you spend in the clinic, once you have finished your day and you head home, just write a little reflection on the day. It can be, just a few lines or something, but that's going to really benefit you when it comes to later down the track and you have your assessments, particularly a bigger assessment where you've got to reflect on the entire course. And what I would have liked to have been told before I really engaged in my reflecting would be to not describe, just to know that from the get-go you can make sure that the reflections you write after your day in the clinic, you get into evaluating, and it just makes it easier.